Welcome to Oncrawl's SEO Space Lab webinar series. We're looking at the newest phenomenon in the SEO cosmos. You can ask questions at any time using the chat section in the webinar box, and we'll answer them at the end. Today's SEO Space Lab showcases Stellar SEOs and how they've built and developed a successful technical SEO community on Reddit. This episode is part of a series of webinars running through May 14th and taking you on a trip through the galaxy of technical SEO with fellow experts. Don't forget to use the hashtag SEO Space Lab on Twitter or head to www.oncrawl.com/SEO Space Lab for more information. I'm Rebecca Barbell, Content Manager at Oncrawl, an award-winning technical SEO data platform, and I'll be your host for this episode. Our guests today are the founders and moderators of the subreddit TechSEO, Patrick Stox, Jeff Louella, Paul Shapiro, and Russell Jones. Welcome, guys. We're really excited to have you here.
Great to be here.
Hey.
That's awesome.
Here, try to get some of these introductions as short as possible, but you guys have an impressive list of things that you've done. So, Patrick, you have a background in business analytics and web development, and you've been working for SEO for over 10 years now. You're currently product advisor, technical SEO, and brand ambassador at Ahrefs. And what got you interested in technical SEO?
Probably just that coming from a development background, I also had affiliate stuff and just click sites, a bunch of things. And my boss about 11 years ago now was like, hey, we need some help with this SEO thing. Can you figure that out? So I kind of jumped in.
Okay. And Jeff, you also started out in web design and development, and you have over 20 years of experience in SEO today. So what prompted the switch from dev to SEO? Would you say you still have a lot of dev baggage?
No, so it was interesting. I started off as kind of as a web designer and was really bad at it. I just had Photoshop, which made me a web designer back when I started. But back then you had to cut everything up yourself and build the websites. So I worked for kind of a website sweatshop at one point where we created just like tons and tons and tons and tons of websites. We just got a business card and made a website. And from there we really I learned the front end HTML, things like that, and did a lot of back end stuff too.
Okay.
I worked for a company called Razorfish back then. It was Avenue A Razorfish, one of the 17 incarnations of Razorfish at the time. I was a web developer, front end web developer at the time, and really helped the SEO team a bunch of times with getting things like accessible and getting crawlers through the site. And then one day the guy who ran that whole division came over to me. He's like, how would you like to come to SEO? And my deal was like, I don't write title tags. And he's like, no, I just want you to be a technical kind of person. And that was about 14 years ago, which was awesome because I think I was like, kind of back then, there was no such thing as like a technical SEO at that point. I was, forget what my exact title, SEO engineer, which I always love getting an engineer title on my name there. But they were, that's kind of how I moved into SEO. I accepted it and it's been that way ever since. So I still don't like writing title tags.
Yeah, neither do I. Does anybody? Paul, you are currently head of SEO at Catalyst. You're a driving force behind the annual conference Tech SEO Boost. And what role would you say community plays for you in technical SEO?
Oh boy. I think it's a situation where people have to learn all the time. And I think community is a driving force behind that. I'm constantly learning from others. I think others probably have learned something from me. And if it weren't for that community, I think that would be much less the case.
That makes sense. Russ, you're the principal search scientist at System 1. You also come at SEO from a perspective of development, R&D, and search science. And when we looked up your different job titles on LinkedIn, none of them ever seem to have SEO in them. Is that intentional?
Well, it's part vanity and part brevity. So when I first started off doing SEO, it was at a very small company and we got to choose our titles. So I went with Chief Technology Officer, which, you get a lot of respect online if you have chief in your title. And then when I joined Moz, I guess it was about 5 years ago, we were trying to come up with something, but search or principal search engine optimization scientist was just really long. And if you took out engine optimization, principal search scientist sounded kind of badass. So we stuck with it. And I'd actually say that, and I bet this is true of a lot of the people who are listening today and the other panelists, we get asked a lot of questions that don't really have to do with SEO at all. Just, for example, a lot of people need crawlers these days. And they'll be like, we
Yeah.
know that you're good at crawling. And so I would say that our expertise has grown beyond the narrower channel that we started in.
Okay. So those are the people answering our questions today and the people behind our TechSEO, which first off, happy birthday to the subreddit, which I think it just turned 4 a few days ago.
Yeah.
So anyone who isn't familiar with it, it has over 8K members, a bunch of daily activity, and regular Ask Me Anythings for the past year and a half about, with some of the biggest names in the industry. Does one of you want to explain what Reddit is in as few words as possible?
Because I
can
think
pick on
Reddit's
somebody.
a collection of forums.
It's a
As
glorified
the Yeah, it's a glorified forum that each subreddit is a different topic for that. So it seems very just a collection of different types of information. Anything from I don't know, car parts to whatever you could name. If you have an idea, there is a subreddit for that. And if there's not, you can start one. And that's kind of how the Tech SEO subreddit started.
So whose idea was that?
I actually got I kind of was like a hoarder of the name for a while. I got it. So even though it's 4 years old, we really didn't start pushing it for about 2 years. I at one time was just going through and saw no one was the moderator for it, so I set up to be the moderator, but never really pushed forward until the other moderators kind of came together and forced me to, to do something with it. Not necessarily forcing, but J.R. Oaks, who's not on the call, he just wrote me, he's like, let's do something with it. And at that time, we decided to really push it forward and start promoting it and getting it going. So it was one of those where I had it, but didn't do anything with it. I was kind of just being a slacker on it, and then eventually went through and pushed it and not knowing where it was going to go or how we were going to do it. I think we just had John Mueller was interested in doing it at AMA, so we kind of started off of that and saw, kind of really went from 0 subscribers to a few thousand that one day, and really thought we had something there.
So how did the other people get involved? Who was the next person? You mentioned J.R. Oaks, who is not here today.
Yeah, I think we all at this time. So Paul and Patrick all run a technical SEO Slack group, and we were just in the Slack group and kind of that day put together a bunch of all the moderators and really pushed it through. So everyone that's on call kind of all started at the same time.
Are you all equally active on Reddit, would you say?
I am certain that I read it more than anyone here, and at the same time use Tech SEO the least of anyone here. I have a real bad problem with getting in arguments online. I can't
That's why you need to stay off the subreddit. No.
Yeah.
I'm pretty active. I'm usually on Reddit, quite a bit. Check at least our sub at least a few times a day.
Yeah, and I run another SEO subreddit, our big SEO, which is I think we're over 50,000 subscribers on that one right now. So I was active doing that before. I've actually collected subreddit moderatorship for a little bit as like a fun little game, which is a little silly maybe. I think I moderate our quantum physics, and I moderated our Twitter for a while, but I let that one go recently. But I'm a daily Redditor. I probably post on our board games more than anything right now, but I'm a daily user.
Yeah, and I'm a daily user for everything on there. it's interesting for our subreddit. Every time I get something I think is going to be like juicy to put on there, like someone already posted it on there. So it's one of those where I definitely help moderate and thumbs up, thumbs down. Very few times have we ever had to ban anyone from there, but there are a couple just massive spammers that came in and spammed everything. And Reddit's really great at moderating that. It's like self-moderating that. Like they have algorithms that do it. We just have to check those logs once in a while to see if they didn't get someone by accident, or someone might be a spammer in one Reddit group, but good in ours, and Reddit might just flag them as someone else too. So when Russ gets in his wars on another group, he might come in and get spammed.
Yeah, I think I have the record for banning people.
Yeah, I was banned.
Anyone that just repeatedly spams is
I was
gone.
banned for a really long time, and then for I want to say my 30th birthday, one of my friends knew somebody who worked at Reddit, and they unbanned me. That was his gift. I got my username rjonesx back, and as soon as I got it back, people started coming after me again because the original reason I got banned was because I had given a talk on how to essentially manipulate Reddit. And so I had to abandon that username just out of, it was just impossible. So I have a new username now. And that one at least is stuck.
So it sounds like from what Jeff said earlier, the subreddit grew really quickly when you started with the AMAs.
Yeah.
I saw your first two were John Mueller and Gary Illyes. So that must have really taken off at once.
Yeah.
How did you get both of them to do back-to-back AMAs?
Violence.
I think they were about a year apart
Okay.
because we weren't really pursuing the AMAs actively for a while. But they were great. I learned a lot from those AMAs actually, so that's one of the reasons we decided to continue with them.
I do think that there's an advantage to folks like Gary and John to post on forums like Reddit insofar as their answers are there, and unlike Twitter where they just kind of pass away, the hope is that folks will revisit that resource in the future and not have to ask or answer the same questions over and over again.
And John's actually a pretty active Redditor. He pops up a lot, which is nice.
Do you think that having a backlog of their answers is valid even in SEO when there's so much that changes so quickly at the moment?
Yeah,
for the most part, probably.
I always found that like some stuff changes, but a lot of it's more about expansion, new opportunity. I mean, the rel equals prev and next kind of stuff might be an example of a change, or authorship going away. But more often than not, there's just something new that we can use. And so I think most of them are useful. And at the same time, if something might have changed, you can go back to the questions and answers and then be able to frame a better question on Twitter or wherever else you're having the conversation and say, well, was this? Is it still that way?
So you've mentioned banning people as part of moderation and checking the automatic queues. What is the toughest challenge of running a subreddit?
I think it is one of the, it's not that it's tough, but it moderating in different ways of where, like, maybe it's not spam, but we also don't want people, like, one of our rules is don't be a shill. Like, we don't want someone to just go in there and just constantly promote their products all the time, which I guess would kind of be spam, but even though they could be a valuable member of the organization. So it is kind of explaining to some of them, some users, that, hey, this is all about sharing information. And if it is like an article you wrote that was like amazing, like, that's great. Like, we're not going to say like, hey, you don't pass that around, because it is part, self-promotion could be good, but a lot of times it is that, companies are there just to try to get their products or something like that used, and don't really give much information. I think it's that gray area where it's, when it's straight spam, we know it's straight spam, or we also try to keep out some of the ultra beginner questions. like what is an H1 tag? Because it's like answered a million other times. So we want to be a little bit more advanced and technical. So it's with those, it's kind of like moderating them without hurting people's feelings. So it's like, hey, maybe this is better for the our SEO group and not our, tech SEO. And some of those I do get comments back from some people like, why did you take my site or take my post down? And the idea is like, hey, it was a valid question. There's just so much other resources out there that you can go and ask that question at. We want to be a little bit more advanced in our technical approach.
Yeah, and I would say the only other part is we have to moderate or be careful with what we let go through because people like Russ like to argue with people, and sometimes that can get a little out of control. We want it to be, a safe space where people can express their opinion, but also we have to draw a line somewhere at times.
Yeah.
So we have to moderate Russ
as
a moderator.
There's a lot of trolls.
Is
He
there
doesn't know he's banned
anything
from the subreddit.
other than the right-hand sidebar? Is there anything you do to encourage people to post positive content or relevant content?
Nope. I don't
Oh
think
yeah,
so.
we've been lucky.
People kind of do it, which is great. Yeah, like Jeff said, lucky.
Do you think
So
there's
tech SEO's been that way, but just I'll draw upon from experience with big SEO at least. So both I think subreddits have benefited from the AMAs that draws a lot of people and people coming back and engaged. But on big SEO we do like topics like on like on a certain day we'll bring up a topic and have like an open discussion on that, that sort of thing, and just we look at this. The Reddit has some sort of analytics. It's very rudimentary, nothing like we're used to on like website analytics, but you can sort of see like where the engagement falls off and whatnot, and try to do something about that. Whether that's like just seed some interesting discussion or something of the sort.
okay? Do you see a lot of overlap between like Reddit and other technical SEO groups, such as Tech SEOs on Twitter or the conference circuit?
I would
Reddit's a
say
little
probably.
different. There's some overlap, but don't you think? I think Reddit's a little bit different. Like you see different people come out on Reddit
Right.
than you do on say like Twitter. Twitter, for the most part, like people are using their own names for the most part, but Reddit, with me being the exception, is more of like an anonymous place to be, and I think people are more open to posting things that they may not have normally posted under their name.
It's
Has
the reason I use my real name on Reddit, so I don't get in any. I'm like, hey, this is my real name. Let me figure out if I should post this or not.
See, I have to
do you think
separate personally. Like I use my real name on like the SEO subreddits and a completely different one on other subreddits.
Everyone does that.
Yeah.
True.
No, I still don't use my real name anywhere. But people figure it out eventually. Who's the only guy defending mods?
do you think that the content and moderating Tech SEO has made you a better SEO?
I
Because
think I
I've
learned.
learned some things up there.
Yeah.
People share really good content that I might have missed. The AMAs with Googlers have been pretty amazing. I think the whole industry got some new information out of those. If you're listening, go read those. They're awesome.
Yeah. And it's also great when we see like Barry Schwartz like posting like an article about something that was said in one of the the subreddit discussions, which kind of validates a lot of like, hey, there's this good stuff going on in here. Again, with anything on Reddit, I think there's one good thing I think with ours is that we're not like old. We don't have like a million people where there's just tons and tons of stuff going on there. Like 8,000 people is a lot, but we have some really great people who are posting that actually are posting really smart things, and then in the comments really helping out. And that's where I see like once in a while you'll see John or Gary pop up in the comments, and I'm like, wow, they're actually following this too, which kind of sometimes shocks me with like something that I'm doing. I'm like, wow, like we actually have a lot of respect in the industry, and that's one of the reasons why like when JR, Patrick, and Paul and all came to me and said, like, we got to start the subreddit that you're holding on to. I was like, I know I'm dealing with some of the smartest people in the industry, and I knew it was going to be perfect for the tech SEO industry.
I would say even when there aren't good answers to a problem, just knowing about the problems is valuable. And you can read through a list of questions and know what things you might need to avoid in the future, just to, like if there's a technology that somebody is invested in and now they're writing a question about some problem they're having with Google's crawler or something of that sort, then if there isn't a good answer, then I know, well, maybe I shouldn't use that technology in my next endeavor. So it doesn't even have to result in an answer. It could just give you some advice on what things have already been tried and weren't effective.
And I don't know about others, but maybe less so in our tech SEO, but there's been times where things have been moderated because they're obvious spam, but then I look into what the spam was, and I learn a couple of things that maybe like on the taboo side of SEO, because they were being shared from like a more spammy source.
Yeah,
Are there
I think I like going into some of those, like, the black hair hat side of things, just to see what people are doing there. Because at work I'm always like have to be on the whitest of white hats there, but I still like to learn what other people are doing. And though I'll say the technical Reddit it doesn't have a ton of that, but some of the other Reddit channels do, and I do like to dig through them and kind of learn what some people are doing to game the system a little bit. So like maybe I can tweak that into a more of a white hat way of doing something.
are there recurring themes that you've seen in the questions that are asked? Is there a topic or a problem that comes up often, or at least that has made an impression on you?
See a lot of schema questions, a lot of href lane questions,
Yeah,
things
I was
that,
gonna say international.
yeah, I think those are ones people struggle with in general.
Yeah, especially because schema is very like, you go to schema.org and they don't have a lot of answers, right? It just says like, here's the things you can do, but like, what is actually Google looking at? I think there's tons of schema questions out there. I have them all the time too. But international is one I see all the time. That's just like, and I also think like when people re-platform and like, what do we do? Like, everyone knows we have to redirect old links to new links, but I think there's some other strategies that people look into a lot of, just like, I have this site and I want to move it over here. What's the best way of doing it? So we think we answer a lot of those questions too.
So more of the hands-on elements.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess tooling questions. People have a lot of, or at least answers are with tools, right? So it's like, you can do that with this tool. And I learned a lot of tools from the group. Just like, I have the ones that I use regularly, but then there's ones that like pop up. I'm like, I never even heard of that one. I think like Nightcrawl or Nightwatcher, or is it Nightcrawler.io, where you can switch a new extension that's out there. I'm like, wow, this one really helps me out with some things. So never heard of that one until the other day.
Do you find that a lot of the comments or the answers are similar, or is there a large variety of expertise that comes in there?
Yeah, I'm going to say there's a wide variety. There's some disagreements at time, just different viewpoints and stuff, but that's how it is, I think, in the industry as a whole. But it's great because we have a lot of people trying to help out, and usually the right answer's in there somewhere.
It sounds like it's been a pretty positive experience in general. Has tech SEO changed how you feel about the SEO community?
I think if you are on any of the other, like, maybe larger subreddits, there probably is more battling going on than there is in our group.
Does that mean that
But
does that
I feel
include
that
even when Russ is participating?
I think there's just a lot that's going on these days that are since there is no rule book, that Google publishes that says you need to do this or this, there's a lot of differing, especially if you are, someone who might be on the spammier side of SEO, which totally works at times. It has its consequences if you do get caught. But there's a lot of those battles that go back and forth, and I do feel that it's, I've learned a lot from it, and I've really tried to stay away from some of the arguments, but I read them all to actually know, like, because again, you find points in everything, and it's like just gives me ammo for my daily job. Say like, all right, people have tried this, and it seemed to have worked, or it didn't work. And then there's people who you have a little bit more, like I respect a little bit more in there, and I respect their opinion when it comes to compared to someone who just might have, one good thing with Reddit is like there's a karma system and things like of like how many times you post or answered and gets thumbs ups. So it doesn't mean like it just means you're probably on it and answer more. Doesn't mean that you have good answers on it, but it's one of those where it's like, all right, this person just didn't sign up yesterday and just started yelling about something. It's or it's a new account that they started, but it's something like that. That it's we try to put in like a time limit with ours to say, especially during AMAs, like if you have signed up for an account less than 8 hours ago, like you're probably, and then you're trying to post already, you're probably trying to spam or do something like that. So like those go in the moderation right away, and we have to go through and like uncheck you if we know you're real.
Okay. Are there other sort of fail safes that you've had to put in place?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a bit in the auto mod. If you want to talk about that, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, first is Patrick, because he's my fail safe, because he's in there and not afraid to ban or kick someone out right away. So there's sometimes I have a question. I'm like, does this seem like it's? He's like, yeah, I got rid of it. So it's great that way. So Patrick is better than the auto mod, but in the auto mod there are things in there that are, like I said, like how long you've been a member of Reddit. Just put you into moderation. If you're system-wide banned from Reddit, then of course you're not going to be able to get into ours. We tried some other things. We've had some auto mod issues because there's a tool called auto mod, and you write a script for it. Sometimes that script went a little crazy and like started putting everything into moderation. So we had to deal with that. Sometimes there was some reason, I don't know why something's in moderation. It didn't seem to fit any of our criteria, but I think it fits a Reddit criteria. And again, that could be that they got auto-modded in another subreddit, and then Google just took that over to ours to kind of like cool. Reddit will have like a cool off period for some people. There is something called shadow banning that happens once in a while. I have never done it to anyone in our group, but that's kind of like you just get banned from our group. You could probably go into other ones, but you don't know you're banned, so you can post. It looks like you've posted, but no one else sees it. So I've had that happen once in my Reddit career, just answering the wrong question by calling the person's name out. Yeah, because I knew the person, so I was just like, like, hey Bob, this is whatever, and they're like, this guy, like, came out with his real name, and I'm like, okay, like, what do I have to do to unban myself? So
shadow Jeff just shadow banning happens from like the Reddit admins opposed to like moderators. That's why you don't know, right? Because like you'll be able to post and then like, oh, no one can see it.
Yeah.
We have a few really active users that are good at reporting spam comments also, like, or spam content. So it's pretty easy. Sometimes you log in and you're like, oh, there's like 3 reports on this post. Gone. Like half the time I don't even have to read it. Like I'm just like, it's obvious it should be gone if it's already that controversial when I see it. Jeff also added something really cool that he has like removal reasons. Like, so we have different reasons we remove posts, whether it's too basic or off topic, or someone's just being self-promotional. I guess they actually get an alert that says the reason, right?
Yeah, when you ban them, you drop it down to the reason, it'll go to an email. So in their email, when a post gets removed, they'll get a reasoning behind why. I try to do it anytime I remove one. I'll even add on to that, just like, just letting them know like this just doesn't fit, like nothing against you, unless it was something against you, because some people will post like questions just like, what is an H1? Then the next one is like, what is a title tag? And then the next one would be, what is this? And I'm like, okay. after 3, like, okay, now you're gonna get like a stern talking to, and if it happens again, like, because again, we don't want to be, yes, like what is an H1 could be technical, but at the same time, it's like, we want to be a little more advanced than that. So.
Patrick, you mentioned earlier that sometimes you post things in the community itself. What types of things do you like to see as posts?
New tools, good articles that, a lot of times I just post stuff that's already kind of trending. There's a lot of great tech SEOs sharing great content. So anytime we see something like that, if it's not already shared, we try and share it.
Okay. Are you the only one who posts, or does everyone else participate as well?
No, I see Jeff posting stuff all the time. I've seen Paul post a few.
Yeah.
Russ never posts anything.
Yeah.
Do you also comment on posts?
Yeah, I think all of us try and help out where we can.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like I said, I'll get through, because I'm not on it all day, but I do come a couple times a day. But by the time like I have the answer, there's already 8 people with the same answer. So that's when I just kind of upvote some of the answers, because there is the upvoting system inside of Reddit. So that way we make sure that the right answer is being upvoted the most to get, just the clarity to people who might be coming in the future to read that, saying, okay, this post was upvoted the most, and it's probably the better answer out of everything. So. And downvoting. If there's something that's totally wrong, or I feel is totally wrong, you downvote it to push it down to the bottom. So, and that is all anonymous. So I wish it wasn't sometimes, because I want to know who when we have AMAs, sometimes like I post the AMA and there's already like 3 downvotes, and I'm like, we didn't even do the AMA yet. I just posted it. Who are you downvoting already?
There's some downvote bots or something.
Yeah, something weird. I would love to be able to know if it was a bot or something. It's just the auto hate button.
Several of you also include moderating tech SEO in your LinkedIn or your Twitter profile bios. So what are you most proud about this community that you've created?
I would say just the community itself, like people are helping people.
Yeah, I mean, SEO it's interesting, because when I got into SEO, it was like kind of a small niche field, and it's still that way, but it's grown and grown, and now to the point where we have content focused SEOs and technical focused SEOs and link building focused SEOs, and I really do like being more technical. I love that side, and that's what drew me into SEO, and just being able to have a community focused on that in general. Like, I still love every aspect of SEO, but the technical side is where I like to be. And I think it's one of the my more prouder things is that it's just a group of really smart people that get to go together and on topics that I really enjoy. So
I just feel like it's part of 3 sort of pillars of tech SEO, just growing up, that happened about 2 to 3 years ago, when we've got Tech SEO Boost. We finally got a conference, got a great subreddit, and we've got a great Slack channel, which just those 3 parts of the community, one that's kind of real time, that you can always talk and ask questions in, one that's more like Reddit, where you're posting news and information, and then one where we actually get together. I don't know, it was an exciting time at that point, and the fact that it's sustained itself over the last couple of years is just, yeah, I think it's made the SEO industry better, just across.
What would you say, Russell, would be the next step in moving forward? You talked about the different types of proximity, so the real time, sort of a more less immediate thing, and then face-to-face contact. Is there another step? As
I don't think that I'm not sure that there is another step in terms of just another place where the community gets together and shares information. I think instead it's just going to, the craft of technical SEO is going to expand more rapidly, and the knowledge is going to be shared more thoroughly, which hopefully will mean that there'll be both less misinformation, but also more innovation. A couple of years back, I talked about how that technical SEO had, for the longest time, been reactive to Google's changes. So Google announces something new that you can do, and then the technical SEOs go out and figure out how to employ it, and then they do it. But the research that's being done by the community now, and more importantly, it's not to say that the research hadn't been done in the past, but that it's being shared and vetted and retested. It is making it so that technical SEO is sort of leading the way more than it had in the past. So I hope that trend continues.
That is definitely
I
something
think-
I'd like to see more.
And I think actually, like, being an ex-developer, when people would come to me, like SEOs used to come to me to like implement stuff, you just be like, get out of here, marketer. But now that like there's this technical SEO thing, I think we have a lot more respect and trust with the development communities to be able to like, especially like, you know, someone like JR is putting out a bunch of, you know, open source code for Python, and I think a lot of SEOs are becoming developers now too, especially in the Python side of things. But we're seeing a lot. At least I see a lot more respect from developers when I go into them. That was one of the reasons when I moved over to SEO. Like I thought I was a valuable asset. Was I could speak the language of developers to developers. I could also, you know, speak it when being an ex-designer, kind of talk to designers and I don't understand their comp processes and stuff like that. And I really feel, you know, SEOs, if they do get a bad rep, one was for like bad spamming type of things, but it's also because we like to know everything that's going on. And, you know, not saying that we cross our lines, but a lot of times it's like, oh, I'll give you my recommendation or something on how content should be written, and the content specialist to be like, I'm a professional content writer. You're not. Leave it to me. And I'm like, I really focus on, I'm not here to tell you how to develop or how to write. I'm just saying these are the best ways, like for Google. And now go like with these parameters, you can do whatever you want. It's just something that we're really working on. But I think that's something that you know, I really feel has changed recently, is that developers understand us, don't understand, but they understand the need for it. They don't need to know everything about it. We'll give them the document to tell them, you know, we need this redirected. We need it to be a 301. However you do it, you do it. Even though now performance is something that's big with SEOs. So like we are really getting into the nooks and crannies of server codes and compression and how we're like displaying the pages and the code there. So maybe stepping on some more toes again to get that up there. But when your site loads in 10 seconds, you know, we got problems, and that's what we're trying to fix. So.
Okay, we have a few less Reddit-oriented questions to wrap up this part of the webinar. So, do you have a favorite technical trick? Paul, do you want to start since you're just back? Okay, without sound, so we'll get someone else to start.
I have a favorite SEO on Reddit trick. Or
Okay.
Reddit. Whenever somebody I don't like publishes something that's really good, you can always just post it with a really terrible title that's spammy to the subreddit that you don't want it to succeed in, and then downvote it. And then other individuals, if the subreddit actively enforces resubmissions or prevents resubmissions, then you can prevent them from any success. It's not very nice, but it's happened enough to me that I figure I've earned the right to do it to at least a couple of people. Patrick, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Oh. Does somebody have a favorite technical, least favorite technical question that you often get asked?
I mean, I think mine, it's not even a technical question. It's more of, so many people will say like, oh, I want to do technical SEO. And then I'm like, where do I start? And I'm like, do you have a website? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, that's where you start. It's just like, learn, like you have to have your own personal website to I think you don't have to, but if you're going to understand anything about the technical side of things, like struggling and not even like going to a host where you hit a button and now you have a WordPress site, like try to install it, the old fashioned way, uploading it to the server, running the scripts and adding databases and stuff like that. And I think you'll just get a general understanding of some of the technical things that are going on. And then it's just tons of reading at that point. But I think a lot of times people just want to know SEO, want like me to teach them everything about technical SEO. But it's like, this is just something that like you spend, like you're up at 2 a.m. trying to figure out something. And you do that, over a while, then you'll get it a lot more. But I think you have to have that desire for it. And some people who just ask the question, like, can you teach me technical SEO, don't really have the desire. They just want it to be taught really quickly. So I think it's something that takes time to learn.
I'll echo that. I think technical SEO that is something that really begs an understanding of some sort of like web development. So in some ways you need to learn some web development. I think it was my MozCon talk where, and actually I made the same point that on Oncrawl's event in Paris, where I see it there being different types of technical SEO. One of those is I'll run a crawler and I'll find some holes. Maybe they're like redirect chains or 404 status codes, and I can use those. I can if I systematically go through those like a checklist, like that'll help your SEO, sure. But to get into really the nitty gritty, more complex situations, you're going to need some sort of web development experience to like understand the more complexities of how a website functions and how Google interacts with it.
If you could go live on a different planet, which one would you pick?
The habitable one.
I tried for so long to think of a decent answer to that question, and I can't come up with one at all. The only thing that occurred to me was Planet Fitness, and I was like, no, that's the last planet I want to go to.
You don't want to go there right now. Actually, right now they're probably all closed, and it's probably safe.
Under any circumstances, coronavirus or not, I'm just gym's just for me.
The only gym that promotes Pizza Mondays or whatever they have.
Okay. We will move on at this point to a Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to ask them in the question box. We also have a handout, which is a list of all the AMAs and a quick link to the archives. So you can find that in the handout section of the webinar. We have a few questions already. I have one from Jairus Mitchell, who has a question for: what is the secret to a good Reddit argument?
Oh, there's so many. I can't remember what, God, there's a word for it. Now I got accused of recently, but it's where you're feigning sincerity in your questions to the person, but what you're really doing is getting them to answer questions in a particular form or fashion, which they're gonna miss one or two steps in the logical argument, so that by the time you get to the end, they've committed themselves to something that they wouldn't otherwise commit themselves. But the other thing that I find is really good in an argument is to make somebody give you numbers. So a lot of the times people will respond in SEO in particular with some sort of intuition or something they heard somewhere, something of that sort. But if you ask them to put some numbers to it and say, okay, well, if that's what you think, show me a decent study or create one. One, it normally shuts people up because people don't want to do that work. But if they do end up doing the work, then both of you end up in a better place because you have an opportunity to learn something and be confident in it.
And next question is, how do you respond to negative feedback? I think that segs nicely from Russ's discussion.
I think it all depends on what the feedback is. I mean, I don't really experience tons of negative feedback, at least towards me. But then again, I'm not the one that's posting with that stuff too. So, but in the groups itself, there sometimes it can get negative. And if it is something that's just, if it's something that's personally attacking someone or doing something like that person's either banned or their post is removed. You can do like 10-day bans and things like that. But so if it's something that's like crossing the line, we'll definitely do that. But I definitely see Patrick in there once in a while saying like, "Hey boys, this is all about we're just trying to spread information and be friends here and like not necessarily try to uh, we don't want to ban someone if we don't have to. If we give them a warning, that would be great. But if someone gets really negative, yeah, we're not afraid to pull the trigger on them.
I take it as a
Makes
badge of
sense.
honor. I mean, at some point, if you're not if you're not getting negative feedback, I feel like you're only answering questions that are easy and well, and in which the answer is well accepted by the community. And at some point, you have to take experts like Patrick and Paul and Jeff and GR Oaks and all of these other individuals out there, and get them to give their best idea and put their best idea forward. Otherwise, we don't progress. We're just rehashing the same stuff over and over again. So obviously, if it's just personal stuff, there are ways to handle that. But if it's somebody critiquing an answer that you had for a question and it's somewhat negative, I think that's a healthy part of the discussion.
There's some positive feedback in the questions as well. One from Dragon Barak says, the SEO community definitely deserves an advanced discussion board somewhere. So he's sick and tired of basic questions all over the place. So thanks guys for making this possible and keep rocking. And a question from Tyler Hammer, who says, I like your advice to build your own website to get started with tech SEO. I spent some time as a front-end web developer. Do you think it's necessary to learn the backside of development to be successful in technical SEO as well?
I don't think it's 100% necessary. I think it helps, right? Everything helps just to be able to understand that, especially if you're running into any type of like real performance issues that might be happening on there. Google really sees the front end of things, but it doesn't hurt by any means, right, to learn the back end of it. You should understand some server stuff, and when some of that server stuff you have to learn is like redirects and things like that, and compression and formats. Maybe even some of the networking stuff of like when you're using any type of proxy or CDN or something like that might be connecting into a site to be able to understand the networking part of it. So just like learning HTML is a great start, JavaScript, things like that. But I think learning some of the server stuff is pretty important.
Yeah, infrastructure, I think is highly missed. Like, I've had to explain like hashing layers to a lot of people because most websites never run into something like that, but every larger website is going to have multiple layers of cache, usually like a page level, server level, CDN level, maybe even some middleware stuff, and just trying to figure out where something is served from, like being able to look at the header responses. I think that stuff always helps because you might have different things at each different level, or you might have something injected from a hack or any number of things. So you got to figure out where it's coming from. Even redirects, like where's that firing? Is that a Java? Is that a language base? Is that on the server level? Is that a CDN? Is that a middleware system? Is that still like some kind of third party system? There's so many places it can happen. So you need to like the header responses can easily tell you like this is a system that fired this, like this was fired from Apache or whatever, so it's on the server, or this was from Cloudflare, so CDN.
I think we have time for one more question. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to build an SEO community on Reddit?
Plenty of opportunity. Just do it, promote it, cross promote. There's a bunch of communities already. There's SEO. There's big SEO. There's tech SEO. I think there's a local SEO one now. Digital marketing. There's analytics.
Yeah.
There's PPC.
Yeah, there's tons for any little asset of it. Web performance, Python. So there's communities for all that stuff.
I mean, just as with something else, like you consider niching down because there are these other communities that are, there's a tech SEO that's a niche of SEO, so something to consider as well.
Yeah,
I think it's important to moderate. I don't think we could stress that enough, because if you look, everyone, like, I would say /SEO is still the most active one, but I think there's one guy and he doesn't really moderate anything, and so like it's hard to even read some of that stuff sometimes. Like it's so off topic, same questions over and over and over again.
I was going to say another opportunity is to find individuals who are already interested in your topic. So, for example, if let's just say that tech SEO didn't exist right now, you could look in the other SEO subreddits and find individuals who are answering these questions. And then when there is a technical SEO question that needs to be answered, you can answer it in your own subreddit and then give the answer in these other forums, but at the same time say, I found this in so-and-so. And individuals who are looking for that answer are going to then say, oh, well, then that's a good place to go for this type of question. And you can do that, obviously, with anything. It doesn't have to be SEO.
It sounds like a good strategy. Thank you very much for all of these answers and for your time and for the time you put into moderating tech SEO. I hope you'll see all of us there shortly. And thanks for the discussion here today with our webinar. Our next SEO Space Lab episode will focus on data science, detect, adapt, and find new opportunities for your business on April 30th with my coworker Vincent Terrazi from Oncrawl and Kevin Newman, the founder of Brighton SEO. So don't forget to register on oncrawl.com and join us for the next episode. See you next time.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you.